if you have a crisis, whether it's a Nestle crisis or when I was working in my earlier organization, Vocat, which went through a financial restructuring crisis and all that, I think there are really 3 or 4 parts. There are 2 big parts. One is from a corporate perspective. How do you deal with the problem? That's okay. You found lead in Maggie. You found something else somewhere else. And how do you deal with the problem? That's very important because ultimately that determines your business model. And therefore, if something has gone wrong with the fundamentals in which you're doing your business, I think you need to find a way to fix it quickly. So that's the first part of the problem. The second part of the problem, which is really, I guess, part of today's discussion, is how do you respond to stakeholders actually? I think all kinds of stakeholders, whether it's employees in your company, whether it is suppliers, whether it is your customers, whether it is your bankers, whether it is your investors. I think that's the second part of the equation, which becomes very crucial actually. And I think as we kind of go through the responses, it is possible that in some cases, I think one of the dilemmas in corporations is that if you made a mistake, would you sort of apologize actually for the mistake that you made which led to the crisis? I think that's a big dilemma. How authentic can you be? Can you apologize in a crisis? Equally, on the other side, for the people who have been impacted as stakeholders, would they forgive? I think that's the, and in all of this, since we are all CFOs here, how does it impact us? Is it a CEO's problem? Is it a board's problem? And what is it for the CFO as he kind of navigates through as one of the spokespersons for the company? And so this is one part of the story. The other part of the story is that as you think of being CFOs actually, I was only reminded, I was telling Anuradha a few days ago that she had posted something called a hero's journey actually on Facebook, where they spoke of, where the beautiful video which spoke about a hero's journey and using comic book examples, whether it is Harry Potter, whether it is whatever, you name your Ramayana, whether you name your Mahabharata, name whatever actually. And they said, ultimately, whether you call it the Ramayana or the Mahabharata or the Jesus Christ or the Harry Potter, it's really at one level the same story in the sense where a hero kind of, a person comes across a certain calling and how does he respond to the calling actually. And therefore, dealing with a crisis in many ways is very deeply personal to a CFO actually. I think that is something that we need to sort of remember. And to a great extent, a CFO is a hero actually. Hero not in the sense of a Shah Rukh Khan, but a hero in terms of how he responds and rises to help the organization in the crisis, and at the same time take his own self to a different level actually. There's a different level of authenticity. I think there's a lot of value in that. And as you go through the crisis, I think what also happens is that when you start thinking, what, I'm a CFO, this is really the CEO's problem. And if I'm the spokesperson, what do I say and what do I not say? One of the challenges which comes across is that how do you define your boundaries actually? Are your boundaries defined by the fact that you're a CFO and not the CEO, and therefore in certain situations you will not answer, but you will let the CEO answer? Or do you say, no, I'm the CFO, I'm a spokesperson, and therefore I will define the boundary as the situation warrants actually. And hence, it's a very interesting aspect of how you get to choose your own boundaries actually. And then the other thing which normally confronts CFOs when you're in a crisis is the fact that you may not agree with what the company is doing actually. And if you look back to the hero's journey actually, what you say is that all of us have what is called as a performing self and the witnessing self. I'm speaking and therefore I'm a performing self. But one part of me is also the witnessing self actually. And the challenge that we face as CFOs in organizations is that many times we are we always looking at the conflict between the performing self and the witnessing self, and then you sort of struggle in terms of the performance and say, gosh, is this what I want? And to some extent, it reflects back to what we just went through in Sufi. How do you, the mind and the heart and the body is what she said actually. In a very different way, I think you need to align the fact, and that's where authenticity comes into play actually.